All right, time to talk some D3 football. Jimmy, we're going to start with, I think, in everyone's opinion, probably the game of the week. Whether you loved it or you hated it, you watched. Susquehanna, they play host to Bethel, come out with a 24-21 win in a ridiculous fashion, dude.
Yeah, wild. The fact that we talked about this earlier, the fact that they only led for 38 seconds the entire game and they still managed to come out with the victory is like, it's just going to be backbreaking for Bethel. I mean, having a really good defensive performance like that and giving up some points late, I mean, it's got to sting for a really good program for those guys. But yeah, Susquehanna coming out on top.
They did, and, in this one, you mentioned it, only led for about 30 seconds, and right here, first touchdown of the day. All this video, courtesy of Logan Moyer on Twitter. Shout out to him, appreciate the coverage. Susquehanna, first touchdown, they tied up at 7 apiece in the second quarter. Did not score in the first. Now, this one, nothing too crazy and nothing too noteworthy about the touchdown, but a big-time touchdown in that it finally got them on the board, Jimmy, and after that, the Royals, they would score just a few minutes later. I think literally 2 or 3 minutes later, they'd go up 14-7. So that tie was taken away pretty quickly by Bethel. Susquehanna, they bounced back. They tied up again halfway through the third quarter. I want you to see this dot on the throw and catch from the Riverhawks right here. Back of the end zone, over the top.
Ooh.
Looked like it could have even got a piece of the DB's finger, but just an absolutely beautifully placed ball and a great over-the-shoulder grab. It was tied up again halfway through the third, 14-14, dude.
Yeah, a lot of action in this one. Another couple stats I would want to point out, though. Bethel, Micah Newell, 16 catches for 154 on a touchdown, even in a loss. I mean, that is incredible from it, 16 catches. I know we had a guy a few weeks ago, I think was on Johns Hopkins. He had like 19 catches or something. I don't remember quite, but like 16, that just popped right off the screen on the stat book for sure.
Absolutely did. Now, the big play on the other side of the ball for Susquehanna, the Riverhawks, the defense, they get the fumble recovery here, punch the ball out in the third quarter. They had a couple times where they stepped up big time, and they forced a couple turnovers on downs on fourth down for this Bethel offense. This was obviously a massive play. Bethel getting over about midfield here. Again, still in the third quarter, able to punch that ball out and get the ball back for their offense as we continue going through this one. And it literally was, just so much back and forth. The Bethel, they'd score 21-14 right at the start of the fourth quarter. A field goal from Susquehanna made it 21-17. So things are starting to get a little bit interesting. Then, for the first time today, Susquehanna would take the lead on this touchdown run. And the quarterback, Ehrlich, he runs it in with 39 seconds left to take the lead for the first time all game. And again, nothing too flashy about the play call. Roll him out, just absolute toughness, goes through two defenders, puts the ball over the goal line, and Susquehanna Riverhawks, they lead it.
Hey, big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games, Toby. It's the most cliche saying in the book, but it comes to fruition right there.
It absolutely did. Now, where this game gets interesting, Jimmy, is the wild sequence at the end, right? The end of the game to kind of set the scene. I'm going to pull up the video here once again from Logan Moyer. And this one just, I think, interesting, doesn't really do it justice. Bethel having a chance to take the lead at the end of the game, like literally last play of the game. They're going all or nothing, trying to make a play. And I'll show you what happens, and then I'll kind of explain it for those, watching at home. Bethel, drop back here, fire one into the end zone. It's caught. No way. Great play there. Come back to the ball and make that play in the end zone. So it's caught for the touchdown. That's the ruling on the field. But you look back, and you can't see it from in this angle. There's a flag on the play for a hold. You can see it on the right side of the line right there. You see the defensive lineman throw his right arm up, like the classic D-line, like, come on, give me something here. You see it on the left side of the screen. Boom. Arm goes up there. There is a flag called for a hold. So this is where it gets really interesting. The refs, they call the hold on that Bethel tackle, and here's a good picture of said call. Again, not leaning one way or the other, but just showing whatever evidence we have. Here's a good photo. And I'll have to move it around. Hold on so you can get a better view of it on the screen here. That's about as good as it's going to get as a photo of the hold.
Ooh.
And pretty incriminating view, I will say.
Yeah.
Pretty incriminating view for the whole.
Yeah.
So, you know, whether or not it's the right time to make a call like that is totally a different conversation, but a pretty incriminating view as far as, you know, just a bad look for that offensive lineman there for Bethel. But that's where it gets really interesting. So the refs, they call the hold, they announce a runoff, which would effectively mean the game is over. But I don't believe it can end that way. So then they say it's a replay of down. But, of course, another wrinkle gets added in that a Bethel player got an unsportsmanlike conduct, a 15-yard penalty after the play. That gets enforced, so it pushes Bethel back. And they have one more chance. After all of this is said and done, they have one more chance to try and pull off the victory on the road. And they, instead of trying to describe it, I suppose I will just let the video play, and we can watch along and see exactly what they did here. They pass it up, one lateral, two laterals, can't find anything, flips it all the way across the field. Thought in real time that might have been a forward pass, but no call there. Lateral back, and now you start to see the eventual downfall further and further down the field. Eventually, big fella gets it, coughs it up, and the tackle is made. Susquehanna, they win it, Jimmy, on one of the most ridiculous finishes we've seen all year. And again, love it or hate it, fantastic football game. So many great back and forth moments from these teams.
And that's anything but a normal game. I mean, just wild stuff there, especially in the quarterfinal game.
Yes.
Wild. So that's why we cover D3 football, man. That's why we do it.
Yes, it is, dude. It absolutely is. But, you know, at the end of the day, Susquehanna, they advance. They continue their playoff hunt. Their hopes of a national championship very much still alive there for the Riverhawks. And we talked about it earlier. They only held the lead in this game for 38 seconds, which is not a trait that you see from many playoff teams, from any teams in general, to be honest with you, just not something you see very often. So kudos to them for their ability to rally late and get this one done. Talked about Ehrlich getting his way across in that 4th and goal from the 1-yard line. That was literally all or nothing for them. And, I mean, those are the big notes. Susquehanna, they're under 10th year. Head coach Perk over there continues their historic run. They got the most wins ever in a season, sitting at 12-1 right now. That's an incredible year for them. Ehrlich became the first Susquehanna quarterback to amass 3,000 yards passing. He's got 3,079. And he also has a school records for passing touchdowns in a season. That's up to 33 now.
It's good work. Solid work right there.
Long way of saying good football player.
Yeah.
Very, very good football player. But all that being said, next week at North Central, preliminary thoughts. What do you think about this matchup?
Going to be a tough one for them. I think North Central's defense is like as good as it's been in a long time.
Yes.
I think their defense is like holding Springfield to 3 points last week is crazy, especially with how good they're running the ball. But I think I haven't looked at the spread yet, but I have a feeling like Susquehanna is going to cover whatever the spread might be, but North Central is going to win the game.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, we haven't taken a look, but that's early indication is cover, but probably taking North Central outright, and we'll talk maybe more in depth.
If I had to guess, I would say it'll be like 17.
Really? That big, huh?
Yeah, because the national championship last game was North Central minus 17 against Cortland. So, I mean, the Hanson ratings favor North Central big time in those spreads, but, you know, like I said, we'll see. I mean, I have a feeling Susquehanna is going to cover the spread for sure.
I hear you there. Absolutely. And for Bethel, Cooper Drews finishes another big-time day, pass in the rock, 33 of 45, 248, and a touchdown, took care of the ball through the air. Bethel didn't have a whole lot going on in the ground game, let up a couple of sacks as well. It didn't help their case. Ehrlich finishes, had a good day, but did have 2 interceptions through the air. That was a big part that kept Bethel in this game. Micah Newald for the Royals, 16 catches, 154 yards, and a touchdown, and then Joey Kidder had 11 catches for 78 yards, both big-time days. 16 catches in a game is,
yeah.
I mean,
I know we talked about
absurd.
it a little bit earlier, but man, like 16.
Yeah, you had mentioned it.
Wild.
Bethel
wild
also
stuff.
had 4 guys with over 10 tackles on the day.
Yeah.
And, usually it's Matt June that we're talking about with the big-time takeaway for this Bethel team. He did it just a week ago. But on this day, it was Nate Farm, 2 interceptions. He got both of them through the air for that Bethel defense, which certainly ended up being some big-time plays, especially in a game as close and competitive as that one. But let's move over. Mount Union taking the trip to Salisbury, their head coach over there, taking home the AFCA Coach of the Year award we just found out earlier this week. But talk to me about this one early on, kind of implications going into this game.
Yeah, so Mount Union had the opportunity to go to their 27th out of 29 semifinal games heading into this one, and they became successful in that endeavor. They're going 27 of 29 in the Final Four. Is just, it's the epitome of consistency. I think eventually, maybe we'll see a team like North Central get to that point, but they've been doing it for almost a decade now. But you got to think Mount Union. This is like going on 3 decades of complete dominance and consistency. Like, man, oh man,
when you think about it like that, there's nothing like that at any level of football. It really is incredible. And in this game, Salsbury actually struck first. The final this one, Mount Union takes it 38-17, so you maybe would have thought this was more of a wire victory. But the Seagulls, they got it going first in the first quarter. Things got worse for the Purple Raiders after the early touchdown right here, rolling out to the right, kind of a deep pass floating towards the sideline. That ball hangs in the air a little bit too long. That's intercepted. And so it felt like just one thing after another early on in this game. Mount Union did not have a lot going on. Their defense would actually come to bail them out on the ensuing series. Mount Union, they'd force a turnover on downs for the Seagulls just a few plays later. So that was kind of their saving grace early on in this one, Jim. But they got the offense going. Eventually, your guy, Echeverry, talk about his impact. I'll play the clip here of a little swing pass that he turns into a big-time touchdown. But he had another great performance. He has just turned into one of the more consistent offensive performers, I think, in all of D3 football.
Yeah, you talking about that, he's a true dual threat running back. 7 catches, 64 yards receiving and a touchdown. Picking up 19 carries, 42 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. That run defense is pretty solid for Salsbury. Holding Echeverry to 42 rushing yards, only 2.2 yards a carry. You got to tip the cap to those guys. Obviously, but Echeverry is a true dual threat running back.
He absolutely is. Just very good in space, but can also do it between the tackles and, whatever kind of he's asked to do. I think he steps up to the occasion there. And then he didn't get the next score for the Purple Raiders. That came from the tight end position. Drew Sims scores with 9 minutes to go in the first half. Mount Union takes the lead for the first time on the day, 14-7. A quick little kind of pop pass right here in the red zone gets it going in the hands of the Purple Raider in the back of the end zone here. Big time play. Looking right into the camera. He's feeling it.
Yeah.
Love it. And supposedly, shout out to d3football.com for these clips, by the way, but supposedly he was taken off the field, assumed to be injured earlier in the drive, came back in to make this play right here. Looks all right. Dog. So that was big. They got rolling there, never looked back. Not too many other kind of highlight moments. I think it was really all Purple Raiders from that point on. Mount Union went on to roll to that victory. And you said it, dude. NCAA semifinals, 27 of the last 29 seasons since 1995. They've been doing it longer than either of us have been on this earth.
Doesn't even sound real. That sounds like a fake stat. It sounds like there'd be a Twitter community note saying this is not true. That it is true. It's just crazy stuff.
Absolutely.
Crazy stuff.
And Salisbury, they were the second team in NCAA Division III when it came to rushing yards per game. Their average going into Saturday was 335.5 rushing yards per game. Mount Union held them to 117.
It's tough,
Very
man.
impressive. And I thought that North Central performance was really impressive. We'll talk about it, but this is right up there. That Salisbury attack, the way they were able to totally eliminate that, they were almost a non-factor when it came to that offensive ground game. And Mount Union also able to overcome maybe some early adversity, a really telling point of a very, very strong football team. But let's move over and talk about another really highly contested game here. Mary Hardin Baylor have picked it up in the playoffs. Their regular season was certainly anything but what we've come to expect from the Crew. They put together a great playoff run, come up a little bit short on Saturday. Johns Hopkins takes this one 17-10, Jim.
Yeah, and then obviously being up 17-0 at half, too, kind of interesting dynamic there. Didn't even score in the second half. Going to the semifinals for the second time in program history. Really, really wild stat here. Johns Hopkins has held their 3 playoff opponents to a total of 33 points and 87 rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
That defense is something else.
It
And then we
is.
talked about it last week too. They continue to make huge stops at the end of the game to get the win for their team. That defense has been
Absolutely. Their defense.
There's a lot of really good defenses. Like people always say, defense wins championships. And some of the best defenses in D3 are still hanging around. So
that they do. The defense here making the game-sealing play against the Crusaders here. That is the scene from Johns Hopkins. And, I mean, you talk about that stat. 33 points, 87 total rushing yards in the last 3 weeks against the likes of Randolph-Macon, a really talented and powerful Grove City ground game, and then against the Crew as well. And they just continue to put together some really outstanding football. And the all-black uniforms from them, by the way, I don't think we appreciate those enough.
Yeah,
those are incredible.
Those are hard.
With the Jays script on the side is sick.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Hey, there are a couple of those guys are being like, welcome to Baltimore. Like they welcomed them to Baltimore, right? They were ready to go. So yeah.
Yes, they were. And I mean, this is kind of turned into one of maybe the quote-unquote feel-good stories here in D3 football. And you go back to that moment with Grove City post-game, right, where they're all huddled around the field after the game after a really great competitive contest. And they've just continued to go and grow, and it feels like the culture and all the momentum is over in the hands of the Blue Jays right now with Johns Hopkins, dude. Really sweet picture right there. I love those. Yeah, check that scene out, dude. Really, really sweet. The Big Ten up there is so ridiculous, too, when you out of context.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of funny?
Yeah, it's just goofy.
And people always get tripped up about the end zones, right? With it being kind of lacrosse taking precedent.
Yeah.
But our final game of the weekend slate, Springfield, they go into North Central. Cardinals, not having any of it, dude. 27-3, North Central takes this one, and I think we have to start with the statistics from that defense. If you follow us on socials, you saw it. Some outrageous numbers from this Cardinals defense, what they're able to do against that Pride attack, Jim.
I mean, just absurd. I mean, you really can't play much better. Obviously, they gave up 3 points. I'm sure they're wanted the goose egg, but I mean, I can't say enough about it, truthfully. I mean, they continue week after week after week to just dominate their opponents at the left, in the front, in the box, front seven, you name it, outside, secondary, everywhere. They swarm to the football, Toby. They are all over the field.
That they were. You look at on the screen right now, their stats from Springfield's offense compared to their season average. You go down the list, yards per carry on Saturday, 3.7. On the year, it was 6.9. Like, that's nothing, maybe too ridiculous. Springfield came into this one averaging 427 yards per game on the ground, compared to a bit over 200. You look at the third down percentage, was only 13%. Compared to an average of 58. That's because North Central got after them on first and second down, gave them a lot less manageable third and fourth down opportunities. Points per game is obviously one that stands out. 3 points compared to their usual 45. Yeah. And finally, the rushing touchdowns. They did not let them score a touchdown, let alone a rushing touchdown, when they're averaging almost 6 per game. Just ridiculous statistics from an incredible defense, and one that gets often overshined by some big-time playmakers on the other side of the ball, and Saka out of the backfield, and Landon obviously under center, and some of the guys that they have in the offensive skill positions. But it certainly is time to give them the respect they deserve, dude, because that is just an incredible performance. Cardinals advancing to the Division III National Semifinals for the 5th straight season.
Nothing new with those guys. Nothing new with those.
No, there really isn't.
Nothing new.
And North Central, they had the ball first, 7 straight running plays. So give them a taste of maybe their own medicine. Go down to the Springfield 2-yard line. Lanen rolls to his right, connects for the 2-yard touchdown pass. And it was like, here we go. Like, this thing, watching that drive live, I wouldn't say knife through butter. I think that wouldn't really make the best kind of analogy to it. But it was very obvious that North Central had command of the flow of this football game early on. And Springfield did not have the answer.
Methodical. I think that might be the word you're looking for.
Yes, no, methodic is absolutely, I think, a really good way to put it, because, just how that word implies, like, they knew exactly what they were doing. Now, moving forward, you talk about that game versus Susquehanna, I think that's probably the matchup that you like if you're a Cardinals fan, to be honest, compared to maybe the other side of the bracket. So I know a lot of people are calling Mount Union North Central in the Natty early on, but That's why we still play the game, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Why we still play it. But we'll talk more maybe about those matchups later on. But I think that's all for this week, Jim. Some really good football being played, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah, a lot of good football. That was a good show to me.
Absolutely. Sweet. Thank you, man. Have a good rest of your night.
Take care.
Yep.